You know what time it is again. It's time for me to hit the record button because Bitcoin is currently in the process of, I guess you could call it crashing. I would call it crashing, but some people might say that that's too strong of a word because we haven't fell that much yet. Should be interesting to see what happens. The most important part about this that I want everybody to be very clear about is that I think there's a higher probability that we go to the downside from here than to the upside. That's not FUD. I've said before to buy the dips when Bitcoin comes down like this, so you know that if I say not to buy it at this point, there's a reason why. And the reason is simple. We consolidated for such a long time at around this, lower 14,000 to high 13,000 area. And there's a lot of support at $13,800. And we've seen that level be tested multiple times. You see all these different candles that touch that, either with the close or the end of the candle wick. You see how many times we test that mid 13,000 to higher 13,000 area. When we break out below that, I think there's a high probability that we fall even lower to the downside. And the problem here is that unlike this fall, there was a lot of reasons why this jumped back almost 70% in a single day. And the reason I think it jumped back so strongly is because there really wasn't any resistance above the market until you got to roughly 17,000. And what do you know? We started to go back down right before we hit that $17,000 level. Well, right now, what we're probably going to see is because we've consolidated over the past week or so at 13,800 or so, we're probably going to see substantial resistance at that level. In other words, there was only one of two options for what could have happened when we were consolidating at this level. It could have either broken out to the upside or it could have broken out to the downside. Now, most of the time when Bitcoin has consolidated as of recently, it always breaks out to the upside, except for, the situation where we consolidated at around 7,000 before Segwit 2x got called off. Outside of that, here's another consolidation, we broke out to the upside. Here's another consolidation, we broke out to the upside. Here's another consolidation, we broke out to the upside. Here's another consolidation, and this is the first time in quite some time that we've really broken out to the downside. What's going to be important is whether or not we close for the day on the downside. If we close for today below 13,500 or so, then I'm going to turn bearish on Bitcoin. I think it could go quite a bit lower. So if you missed your opportunity to buy on this particular dip, there's probably going to be another opportunity here. A lot of you are going to say that I'm fudding Bitcoin. I get that. I'm just saying, based off of what we've seen in the past, Bitcoin always tends to break out from consolidations. We really haven't seen it break out to the downside from a consolidation in quite some time. And I would have made the opposite video if we broke out to the upside, because you guys know in my last video I said that we really wanted to consolidate at the lower 15,000s for me to turn bullish, and that didn't happen. We consolidated at the upper 13,000s. Now that we've broken out to the downside, that acts as resistance. A lot of people are going to be tempted to sell at that level if we come back to it, which is going to make it very difficult to bounce back from this level. We're starting to see a little bit of a recovery here. I wouldn't be surprised to see us bounce back up to that $13,000 level. We might even go up above it to roughly 13,200 and then reverse back down. The reason I'm still going to make this call is just because it makes sense that Bitcoin has a little bit of a correction from here. And if you are somebody that missed out, this is a good time to put a limit order in. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about in this market right now is the fact that Ether briefly passed this 5.5 million Satoshi level. Now, if you guys recall, this was a level that I've said multiple times before was a target. I wanted to see Ether come up to roughly 5.5 to 6 million Satoshi. And you can see that there's been this nice, strong, bullish uptrend in Ether over the past 24 hours or so. And if we pull this back over a longer period of time, you can see that it's been quite some time since Ether has tested this level. Let's go even further back. And you can see that we haven't come to this level since last month. And really, to me, this is going to be a good opportunity, ideally, to cash in some Ether for Bitcoin. Now, we might see it break up even further past this. However, this is a critical resistance level for Ether relative to Bitcoin. As a result of that, this is probably not the worst time in the world to consider moving some into Bitcoin. Especially because if we see Bitcoin move lower from here, especially if it hits like a free fall like this did back on, what was this again? This was December 21st. If we see another free fall like this, what tends to happen to altcoins, if you haven't seen my previous videos, is they tend to depreciate faster than Bitcoin does. Ether is actually an exception at the moment. So it should be interesting to see whether or not Ether holds strong in this particular correction, if the correction continues going as it does. The other thing I wanted to talk about in this particular video is this Bitcoin dominance figure, because I remember, if you haven't watched my previous videos, I mentioned that really you want to see this dominance figure come up to 50% before you turn bullish on altcoins. And if you look at it now, that sounds like a horrible call. However, a large reason for why this dominance figure has declined as much as it has is simply the result of Ripple pumping as much as it has. You know, recall the fact that Ripple has gone up sixfold just in this particular month. So let me go ahead and show this to you here. If you look at this, you can see Ripple is earlier in this month. Let's see, if we go to the beginning of the month, you can see that Ripple was at 2.5%, and now Ripple is all the way up at 16% of dominance. So the big reason why we've actually seen Bitcoin dominance fall is not because altcoins are doing better relative to Bitcoin, although that is part of it, but because Ripple is doing so much better against Bitcoin. It should be interesting. If you look at that other percentage, you can see how it's gone up from 14% earlier this month, roughly midway through, all the way up to 18%. I expect that figure to fall if we see Bitcoin continue to go down like this. So all of it really depends on how rapidly Bitcoin falls. If we see sort of like a stepwise function downward, in other words, it goes down a little bit, consolidates, go down a little bit, consolidates, then altcoins will do well. If we see Bitcoin go into free fall like it did historically back here, then we'll probably see altcoins fall substantially as well, and we'll see that dominance figure come up. But I just wanted to point it out because a lot of people might be saying, wow, Bitcoin dominance dropped quite a bit. Is that because of the fact that altcoins have greatly outperformed Bitcoin? And in general, it's just because Ripple has done so phenomenally relative to Bitcoin. Now, another thing here, I haven't checked this. If we go to the markets, I suspect GDAX might be trading at a premium again. Is it trading at a premium to Gemini is the important question. Let's see, where is Gemini? I'm blind right now. Let's see if I can find this. Wow, it's all the way down here. Okay, so Gemini is currently trading at roughly the same value as GDAX is, so there's no opportunity there. It is interesting seeing the difference between all these different exchanges in terms of Bitcoin value. But if we do see a substantial difference between GDAX and Gemini, then that can be a great opportunity for you to do a little bit of arbitrage. If you recall, there's been numerous times where I've said to store your money, your US dollar, on Gemini, right? Store it on Gemini, but then store your actual Bitcoin on GDAX. The amount that you want to keep on exchanges, that is, of course. Some people will say you shouldn't leave any Bitcoin on exchanges, and I disagree with that. If you want to be liquid in this particular market, you do need to keep some on exchanges, because oftentimes when you want to send Bitcoin to an exchange, it's going to take a little bit of a while to get in there, and it takes even longer when you most want to get it there, because it tends to be when Bitcoin gets a little congested as a result of price action. These exchanges tend to slow the more volatile that price is, and those tend to be the times that you want to send Bitcoin to an exchange. So for those of you that have any Bitcoin on exchanges, I'd recommend that you store it on GDAX and then store your US dollar on Gemini. What you can do is you can sell the Bitcoin on GDAX, buy an equivalent level of Bitcoin on Gemini, and you will do just fine. That will be a quick arbitrage opportunity. We'll probably talk about that in a future video. It's not there right now, but it tends to get there. We tend to have a premium on GDAX when prices decline or when they go up very quickly. So that should be interesting to watch over the coming few hours or so. But I wanted to release this video rather quickly just to give you guys my thoughts. If you aren't following my Twitter yet, please make sure that you do, because I provide information on here that are relevant, sometimes that's timely. You can see here that I made 2 different tweets talking about price action that basically encapsulates all that I talked about in this video, and it was a little bit earlier obviously than this video will go up, probably about 2 hours earlier, because it takes a while for me to edit the video, make a thumbnail, so on and so forth. I don't always do this, but sometimes I do, so if you want timely information from me, make sure that you follow my Twitter, because it takes no time for me to make a tweet when it's relevant in terms of price action. So check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, as usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you would like to interact with me, I tend to be a little bit more active on my Steemit, just because the number of comments is more manageable there. It's also more accessible for you if you would like to see my responses to other people's comments, because sometimes my responses get buried on YouTube. And then there's also a monetary incentive for both you and I to post on the platform. You can see here that I've made a decent amount of money from each of these posts. And in addition to that, if I click on this post here, if you leave a comment that other people like this guy did, very detailed, very informational comment, then they'll upvote your comment and you might get paid a decent amount yourself as well. So make sure that you check out my Steemit. It's worth it at the very least to see my responses to other people, especially if you have a question, because I often get asked the same question over and over again. So make sure that you check out the link in the description or in the pinned comment below. Otherwise, leave a like, comment, and subscription. Make sure you click the bell button, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.